Americans eat about 10 billion bowls of soup every year. That's about 30 bowls of soup per person. Today, we're going to move beyond chili and chicken noodle and share some not-so-secret family favorites as we enjoy Zuppa Toscana, creamy chicken and gnocchi, creamy potato, and lasagna soup. If you enjoy the fly-on-the-wall perspective and some amazing meals, hang out because I think you're going to love what I have to share today. Soup season is officially upon us. The cool, crisp evenings have turned into downright cold ones. And today I'm going to show you some ways that I have found to successfully warm up my family and keep our dishes to a minimum with some one-pot meals or soups, as it actually may be. The first one we're starting out with is an Instapot lasagna soup. Now, lasagna soup isn't something that we have very often around my house, but I had a box of lasagna noodles and was looking for a way to use them up, and I thought this sounded so good. My kids love spaghetti. They love lasagna when they eat it out at my mother-in-law's house, so this seemed like the perfect marriage of what I was looking for plus what they were looking for. To start out, we had to brown up a bunch of ground Italian sausage. Now, I ground up twice as much as I actually needed for this recipe because I wanted to save some out for another soup that we were going to have later this week. Now, the one unfortunate thing about that was my kiddos walked by and saw the beautiful bowl of sausage on the table and decided they needed to steal a little bit out for themselves as well, so we didn't have quite enough for the second round, but we'll talk more about how we remedied that a little bit later. So after the sausage was brown, we have to get the onions and the garlic all cooked up nice and soft before moving on to next steps. Now, you might have already noticed, but my tiniest helper is also on the job today. Anytime there is something going on in the kitchen and she's not preoccupied playing with brothers or sisters, she is always ready to jump in, and she could not wait to just take a quick peek and see what was going on inside our Instapot. So once I got the onions and the garlic all softened up, I'm adding some homemade chicken broth. Now, the chicken broth that I made, I left the fat in last time because I wanted to add that rich, beautiful flavor, knowing that I wouldn't keep it on the shelf very long. So that's why it looked a little bit different in the jar. Also to the pot, I added a couple pints of my cherry tomatoes that I canned up last fall. I love cherry tomatoes for any time a recipe calls for diced tomatoes because you can just throw those little tomatoes in and give them a slight chopping after they saute for just a little bit, and they turn out really, really beautiful and give you a little more of a rustic texture, which I personally love. Into the pot is dried basil, parsley, onion powder, oregano, some red pepper flakes to taste, and some dried rosemary. Once you get that in, just a nice stir to get it all mixed up, and then it's time to add in the noodles. So initially, I started to try to crack these noodles just one by one straight into the pot, and what I noticed was it was a little harder to break. They weren't really breaking up as small as I would like them before they were dropping, so I switched up my plans and went ahead and cracked them right out here on the plate before I pulled them all into the pot. There was a note on the recipe to make sure that you just submerge the noodles and not to fully stir them. So I'm not really sure what difference that might make, but that is exactly what I went ahead and did. Now all you have to do is set the pot and you are ready to go once your 6 minutes at high pressure are up. Once the time is up, I did do a manual release, which I find is best anytime you're working with noodles so they don't overcook in the process. Then added the sausage back to the pan. After that was done, it's time for the ricotta. Now, any lasagna that you make is always made better with ricotta, so we're adding it directly into the soup before topping it with mozzarella. Now, as you will quickly see, the smell of the soup was so amazing. It was starting to draw a crowd, and everybody was ready to be warmed up from the inside out. One of the joys of living in an older house like ours is that sometimes it's a little harder to keep warm, and a soup like this is one of the tickets to go ahead and make that happen in real time. The other thing that I found super helpful is space heaters, but that isn't always easy to find one that's good around kids and family. And today I want to introduce you to one that I found that I think fits that bill, which is the Dreo 2-in-1 fan and heater. I'm a big fan of any time I can find something that's going to multitask like this. But also safety is so important for me being a mom of littles, that when I found one that was not only cool to the touch, but also had an automatic shutoff when it fell over, I knew I'd found something worth bringing home. Another big selling point for me is this thing has a digital thermostat that can be set anywhere from 41 to 95 degrees, has super easy one-step controls, and gives you the option and flexibility of moving it easily from room to room because it is really light. It's also the most powerful on the market, and it's super quiet. Whether it's in heat or cool mode, this thing barely makes a sound, which is such a huge improvement from the big old fan that my husband loved to use around the house. When I was looking into fans and researching the options, I had come across the Dyson, and of course I had eyes for it, but I was able to find the Dreo at such a better price point that I really felt like it was best for our family, not just for the increased features and the power, but also for the price. If you're in the market for a safe and quiet fan or heater this holiday season, make sure to check out the link in my description and take advantage of the amazing deals only available for my viewers today. Thanks again to Dreo for keeping my family warm this winter and for sponsoring today's video. And now it's time to turn our attention straight back to the all-time family favorite soup, which is Zuppa Toscana. If you have ever frequented Olive Garden, I'm sure you have seen or probably had a bowl of Zuppa Toscana. But I want to tell you that it is a soup that you can just as easily make at home, and of course for way less cost than if you were actually to go to the restaurant and have it brought to you. So today what we are going to do is brown up some sausage. Now, I know you're thinking I just browned up some sausage last time. I did. My kids ate a little of it, but the main reason that I went back to purchase a little more sausage is because I have this large note on the page in my handwritten family cookbook that says, double it. Everyone likes it, and there are no leftovers with a single batch. I made that mistake once, the first time I actually made this at home, and I am not kidding. There were several people circling the pot looking for extras. That was many years ago, and ever since when I make it, I do make sure to double this one. The worst thing ever is to make a delicious recipe and not to have anything left over, or even for people to have thirds of their first serving or the first night. So that is what we are doing today. I went and grabbed another pound of sausage because my husband says there can never be too much sausage in a soup. The first step is to go ahead and get the bacon completely crispy and set it aside so you can top it on your soup later or add it back in, just depending on how you like that flavor to meld together. Once that's done, leave the bacon fat in the bottom and start browning up the sausage. During that time, it is the perfect opportunity to go ahead and dice up your potatoes. Now, I am just using a Yukon Gold here. You can use any potato that you have, but I love the Yukon Golds because the skin is so thin that I don't have to peel it, and all of my super picky eaters are still very happy with the way it turns out. So that's just a total option, whatever works best for you. Now, I am a big fan, a huge fan actually, of pre-chopping my onions so I can save a little bit of time when I'm in the middle of a recipe. So I'm just going ahead and adding some onion to the pot and getting those completely browned up before adding a few seasonings. That was Italian first. And then we're adding some of that homemade chicken stock to this one as well. I'm putting about half of the bacon back into the pot. That gives me the best of both worlds. The flavor for the bacon will meld into the soup, and I'll also have enough for topping it later that'll still be crispy. Now, once that is complete, slide the potatoes into the pot, add the rest of the chicken stock, and then all you have to do is put the lid on and seal it up. The awesome thing about all soups in the Instapot is that they come together so fast. So this one is 5 minutes at high pressure, but if you don't have an Instapot, you can still make this recipe on the stovetop. So don't throw away any recipe just based on the device. It just takes a little bit longer to simmer on the stove. On this specific day, I did not have time to make some homemade bread, but when I was recently cleaning out my freezer, I did find this bag of ciabatta rolls from Wild Grain. So I'm going ahead and making those. It took 10 minutes total from frozen in the oven to get those ready to go, and they made the absolute perfect side for this soup. By the time I actually grabbed them out of the freezer and got them in the oven, my soup was complete. So after a quick instant release, all I had to do was add the last few ingredients to the pot. Now, On Zuppa Toscana, they typically use kale, but I use spinach. It's just easy to keep frozen in the freezer and is super, super easy. The kids love it. It doesn't quite have the same woody texture that the kale would have. So I took some frozen spinach. I'm just pouring it right into the bowl. If you don't keep frozen spinach at home, I highly recommend it just for soups like this because it is such a huge time saver. It lasts so long in the freezer and it is packed with nutrition. Now, once the soup cooled down just a little bit, I did add some heavy cream. If you just have half and half, that will work as well. I've even used milk. When I do use milk, sometimes I use a little less or I let it cook down just a little bit longer so the soup isn't super watery, but it's totally optional. Just make do with what you have on hand. I promise nobody will complain about it being a little extra runny. All they care about is the delicious flavor of that broth once it's done. So you can see my ciabatta rolls there as well as the soup. It turns out so, so delicious, and you still have that bacon to top it with on the side. Now, my crew is not patient when this one is coming out, so I am filling these bowls kind of on the low side. They will definitely come back for more, but this broth is so piping hot at this time that it's more of a safety issue than anything else. If you don't have small children, or you can wait a little bit for it to cool down, that'll definitely be a better choice. But for us, we just start with a little bit and then we add as time goes on. Those ciabatta rolls pulled apart and made such nice bread to go in these bowls that I was able to save the last couple and use them for another meal that we had on the following day. We have now completed 2 of our 4 soups for the day, and I hope you've seen something that you found delicious already. I do want to make a note that I will put all of the recipe links down in the description for you, as well as links to anything that you see me using. So if you have questions, make sure to check the description. If you see something that is not there that you're interested in, make sure to let me know, and I'll see what I can do to track it down for you. Now, the third soup is a creamy chicken and gnocchi soup. It is probably one of my personal favorites out of the 4 that I'm showing you here today. And it is so hearty and so delicious that it is the perfect soup for a hunting morning, which is where my boys are right now. They're out with their dad, and they actually were able to bring home a really nice buck on this specific morning. So we were very happy to have extra meat in our freezer for the coming fall. And they were happy to have something warm and delicious to put in their stomachs as soon as they got in for that cold, cold, blustery wind that we've had flowing through here in the last couple of days. Now, I took a look at the recipe and decided the best way to make this happen was to chop all of the celery, onions, and carrots all at the same time, and the garlic, even though the onions needed to go in a few minutes early to get softened. There is so much involved in this specific recipe. It takes 4 celery stalks, 6 carrots, in addition to a whole onion. So getting that all handled at once just saves a lot of time when you're in the middle of it and have things going on, which tends to happen around here. Now, I gave all of these ingredients quite a bit of time to cook down because some of my carrots were a little bit on the larger side. And I also knew that I was not working with a raw chicken, which this recipe actually calls for. I am going to use some of my homed canned chicken. I find it is the ultimate time saver and super, super flavorful. If you are not into canning or don't buy pre-canned food at the store, make sure to go ahead and use a rotisserie chicken if you have that available as well. I did a whole week's worth of meals with a rotisserie chicken that I picked up at Walmart a couple of weeks ago. It came out to $1 per plate, and those recipes were so good. That rotisserie chicken adds so much flavor that I highly recommend it. Those are big loss leaders at the store, meaning they are less expensive. The store actually loses a little bit of money on them. I guess that's a better way to say it. So it's a great way to do it. It's actually cheaper than buying the raw chicken yourself. If you haven't seen that video, I will make sure to link it down in the description. So check it out because I think you'll love all of the user-friendly and easy ways that you can use a pre-cooked chicken. This soup just being another one of those that can be added to the list. Now I added a whole bunch of spices in here, and I did not measure any of them. It called for 1 teaspoon of paprika, and when I first dumped it in, I was a little shy of where I wanted to be, and more than I needed went ahead and poured it on the second chance. So it was a great reminder to me that even though I can eyeball things, I can't always control the variables, and I should probably go back to those measuring spoons. In addition to the paprika, you have some Italian seasoning, some fresh thyme, and some chili flakes, as well as some salt and pepper. Now, I am also adding chicken stock to this recipe. It does say you can use vegetable, so whatever you have available is going to be fine. Any stock other than beef, I think, would make a really good flavor here. I just don't think beef, since it's a chicken soup, would be quite the right combination. Now, during this time as the soup was cooking, I got a call from my mother-in-law right after I dumped in the gnocchi. It just takes a few minutes to warm up, but she was calling to let me know that one of my little hunters was having an allergic reaction to the dander in deer. We've gone through this about 4 years in a row. It can be kind of scary and a pain to get over, but luckily I was able to calm him down really fast and get back home, and the soup was ready in perfect amount of time. So we got him all fixed up with his meds as well as the soup. And this one, like I said, so delicious, absolutely amazing. And one of my favorite things about this is just that you can buy a bunch of gnocchi and put it in the cabinet because it is shelf stable, and have a delicious meal like this at any time without having to worry about extra ingredients or anything like that. So take a look at that spoon. So delicious, so chunky, and totally amazing. Now, before I take the time to tell you about our fourth and final soup of the day, I want to take just a second to introduce myself to any of you who might be new to my channel. My name is Jill. I am a homeschooling mom to 5 kids, ages 3 to 11. We have a very active house, as you've probably been able to see, and I have a goal to feed our family the highest quality foods at the lowest price possible. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. At the beginning of the year, I had a totally small channel of 2,000 subscribers, and my goal was to hit 25,000 before the end of the year. We're getting super close to that goal, and I know about 75% of my viewers have not yet hit that subscribe button. So if that's you, help me reach my goal, and I appreciate you so much. Turn on that bell and you'll get all the notifications, and you will never miss an upload. Now I'm going to turn our attention back to the matter at hand, which is a baked potato soup. The recipe says this one is from Outback, so if you're familiar with that soup, that's the flavor that we're working to recreate here. Now, more bacon browned up and set to the side. You do want to make sure that this gets crispy. Once that happens, then you use the grease in the pan to go ahead and fry up your onions. Now, I had quite a few onions. I also had quite a bit of bacon, so there was quite the little mixture going in the bottom. When I added in the garlic, the flavor in the room was so amazing. Now, the recipe itself says to bake potatoes and use actual baked potatoes to get the texture that you're looking for. Now, I am all about a quick meal hack, so home canned potatoes are going to fill that space for us. If you have ever used home canned potatoes, they make an amazing quick potato salad. When I pulled the jars out, my littlest lady was so excited. She said, "Mom, can I just eat some of those raw?" She's a big fan of the canned potatoes, but I love to use them in soups. Once you toss them in the onions, the garlic, and the bacon grease, then you want to go ahead and get them mashed up. You can just use a potato masher if you want to go in and get the desired consistency that you're looking for, or an immersion blender is a personal favorite. It comes in really handy, and you can kind of leave some of the lumps if you want, or blend it up completely smooth, just depending on the texture that your family likes best. After you get that complete, you're going to need some shredded cheese. And here at our house, I do not buy pre-shredded cheese. I don't like the stuff that they cake the cheese with or the feel that it has after it comes out of the bag. I also love the big blocks of cheese that you can get from Azure Standard that are raw, and they're just absolutely delicious. So this is a white cheddar, and we just shred up anything that we need. Oftentimes I will shred up the whole 5-pound block, put it in the freezer and freeze it. It is amazing. It's also way cheaper to buy that big 5-pound block than it is to buy a raw cheese in like the 8-ounce size that you would typically get at a grocery store. So I highly recommend checking it out. I will drop the link down below to that specific cheese, although I kind of hate to share it because it gets sold out so fast all the time. There's so many of us out there who love this cheese. So really just take a look at the description down below if you want to try some of it out, but leave some for me, would you? All right, after that is in the pot and all stirred up, I did add some sour cream, and it calls for green onions on top. Now, lucky for me, I had some green onions that were still growing in my garden. So I ran out back, pulled some up, chopped them off, and got them ready to go. And I have to tell you, the flavor of this soup is so good. Maybe it's the potatoes or maybe it's the bacon grease. I personally think it's a combination of both. This is a flavor combination that you will not go wrong with. So I want to thank you for stopping by my kitchen today and remind you to check out the link for that 2-in-1 tower, heater, and fan down in the description. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you back soon.